I did not hear the exact comments. I just saw social media posts about Will Howard talking about running through that final play against Oregon over and over and over in his mind. Like many things that can be interpreted one of two ways. Either this is the mark of a, for lack of a better term off the top of my head, somebody who's just anal, focused on just, I want to be the best. We need to address every detail. The Peyton Mannings of the world that are so good at what they do because of the attention to detail, the obsession with being great. Or is this something he just needs to let go, move on to the next game, not let it, he can't change it. He can't let that disrupt him going forward in his progress and leading this football team.
Yeah, I think it's both, because there's been no game to move on to until now. And so Ryan Day even said it last week. It's okay to get down after this one, and you're certainly not going to move right past it. But Will Howard said himself, you just use it, it's in the back of your mind. You use that game and you move on. And then, basically, what would you have, when asked, like, what should you have done? What would you have done differently? He said, just get down earlier, 1 second earlier. I mean, we're talking about a game of inches, a game of literally seconds. And then, of course, you can go and look at the stills of the slide already happening with 1 second on the clock and the timeout being called with 1 second on the clock. But then the fans are out on the field and it's too late to change anything at that point, basically. But, just get down. That's what he's learned. Be more, I guess, more decisive earlier in that way. But it's interesting. You're thinking, like, well, how many times are they going to run into a situation like this? They practiced it several times this week as well, just in dealing, okay, now how are we going to handle it? Because when you're expecting to play in as many close games as Ohio State is down the stretch, it's very unlikely that this is the last situation they run into like this. Even at the end of the first half, they're going to run into this again. So you better be ready for it. And that kind of experience, failing like that is, I think it's perhaps more helpful than getting away with it like they did against Notre Dame last year. And then you see how that maybe backfired and didn't seem to help them against Michigan down in that last drive.
Yeah, I think the post-mortem from that last drive, if you go back and watch it, things kind of went awry from the start. I think they had like a minute 40 to go, something like that, and one timeout. So they had all the time in the world to go down the field. But they lost 18 seconds on the first play when he slipped and fell down. And, everything kind of went off kilter in that moment because it took him 2 plays to recoup all that yardage and get the next first down. To Howard's credit, he was able to do that. He came right back and got the first down and kept the drive going. But, you never want to start out by going backwards. And I think that it was 18 seconds from the time he went down until they ran the second down play. And they'd lost 9 yards, so all of a sudden your 140 became 120 and you have an extra 10 yards you have to go. So that was not a good beginning. Then toward the end, obviously they hit the pass play to Ibuka to get to the 28-yard line. And on the next play, I think Smith gets flagged for the pass interference penalty. And they get backed up 15 yards. I mean, man, oh, man, that's terrible because you're out of field goal range where you were on the edge of field goal range, theoretically. You think Fielding's good from 45 probably and in. He's probably an 80% guy. Outside of that, it goes down closer to 50, 60% probably. So, you lose all those yards. But the other thing was, I think, and again, the end of the game timing rules to me are so confusing. I always thought after a penalty, the clock stopped, but I guess because Smith caught the pass and was down in bounds and the official on that side was winding his arm. I mean, they stopped the clock, did the penalty, moved it back. I don't think Ohio State was aware that when the referee went to the ready to play and started the play clock, he also wound the game clock, and 7 seconds from 22 down to 15 went off, before they ran the play. I think in that instance, the referee should communicate directly to the head coach, not on the speaker, but directly to the head coach. When I blow this ready for play, the game clock is going to roll, because I don't think Ohio State figured or knew that that was going to happen, because they let 7 seconds go off right there, before they ran that play. And that was critical. And then, Oregon has obviously admitted that they snuck an extra defender onto the field with 10 seconds to go to defend that pass play, which was incomplete, and left Ohio State with 6 seconds to go at the 38-yard line, roughly. And then, as we know, the final play was supposed to be a pass down the right sideline. I think they flooded that sideline with different layers of receivers, probably in 8 or 10-yard intervals, where he could pick and choose whichever one he could get it into. Well, they brought a rusher off that edge that was right here, apparently, and he wasn't able to make that go. So he takes off running, and, he gets down. I timed it. I thought it was like 5.5 seconds. I don't know. But again, the joke's on you. You can't let the game come down to the last second and hope that, the fickle finger of fate is going to rule in your favor, because in that instance it didn't. And, there was no review. I've seen cases where they've kicked 1,000 people off the field to run one more play. It's very rare when that happens, but they were their own worst enemy in this game. They, my God, worst defensive effort back to, we covered this last week, 22 against Michigan. I had PTSD watching this game, thinking back about, all the chunk plays, and Oregon didn't even have their signals. So, it was like, this was straight on the up and up. So, and it exposed Ohio State's defense for what it is, I suppose. But end of game got away from them. End of game ended up with 1 timeout remaining. They would have been ahead once the guy wound the clock after the pass interference to call timeout. I mean, as it turns out, I think what they were hoping was that if they were tackled down in bounds in the final seconds, they would call timeout. But, it just, the whole thing got away from them. It was just not, they practice it every week, but, boy, it sure didn't go as easily as it does back on the backfield at the Woody Hayes Center, did it? So, with the crowd and the penalties and everything else, and the quarterback falling down. Will Howard played his heart out, but he fell down. Let's see, what else did he do? He didn't get down in time. I think he took a sack one time when he should have thrown the ball away. So, and he fumbled that snap. Like 3 or 4 things, that really could have turned the outcome of this game. But he played an amazing game on the whole, though.
And the fumbled snap was what? 1 point lead, about their own 20-yard line.
They had to punt the ball
7 minutes left.
Yeah. In the second quarter, right?
Yeah.
Third and 3.
Yeah, it might have been. They had to punt. It was when they just come off their own goal line from the 2-yard line with the punt. They had the makings of a back-breaking drive, and it got short-circuited because of that.